We now turn to policy analysis. This is where decision making is put into practice, right? Where the science of decision making is applied to uh, how we understand if the policy that we're selecting, if the decision we're making, is going to actually work. So here we're getting into a little bit of the mechanics behind a rational, comprehensive approach, um, or more accurately, a bounded approach. So we'll talk about the kind of general concepts of policy analysis. We'll break down outputs versus outcomes, and we'll think deeply about what is causation, what are modern approaches to policy analysis, and then we'll kind of they'll assign you a video to watch, and you can try on your own. So what is policy analysis? This is the systematic approach to evaluating the alternatives, right, to address the public problem. So it is like we spoke about with decision making, again, but we are applying it decision making directly to public policy problems and using an analytical approach to weigh those alternatives. The core purpose is to provide clear, objective information to decision makers using evidence so that the policies that we have are based on data, are based on science, are based on predictions of if we do something at this point in time one, at time two, this will happen. We measure these things in terms of outputs and outcomes. If you go back to in your mind to the systems model of the policy process, right? The model there showed that we have rulings, decisions, and rules, right? These things that are the outputs from the three different branches of government. These are kind of measurable things, tangible efforts. They're easy to track. The example could be a traffic signal, right? The number of people served for a given public policy, the number of laws that are passed by Congress. The outcomes are kind of harder to quantify. These are the actual effects on society. Accident reduction, improved health. It's easy for me to measure the output of the classroom experience that we're having right now, right? The number of videos that I'm producing, the number of videos that you actually watch, the number of tests that I'm signing, the quizzes, the number of tests or how well you do on those quizzes. The outcomes, the ultimate goal of this class, of you being able to contribute to the policy process, you being able to better understand how to engage the policy world, hopefully trying to seek whatever objective that you have. Maybe it's policy change, maybe it's status quo, however it may be, right? But you're able to take these skills and apply them elsewhere, right? Or apply the skills that you've learned here and other components immediately during your college career, down the road in 5 years, down the road in 10 years, 20, 50 years, right? Those things are hard to track. To help us get at the idea, the deeper analytical approach, we rely on causation and we build causal models. Causation is a relationship between cause and effect, right? And there are a few different criteria to establish causation. Temporal sequence, so the cause precedes the effect. Correlation, they are kind of connected. When one goes up, the other goes up or down. When one goes down, the other goes up or down. If you're thinking about a measure or a number or something like that. So a correlation of the number of videos you watch and your grade in this class. Right, those things are correlated. But the cause, the actual, the causation there could kind of go in a number of different ways. Not necessary. So, and then the other thing is no spuriousness. So we've ruled out any other factors. So we have isolated the actual cause and the actual effect while controlling for spurious or confounding variables in a particular econometric model, if you're thinking about it that way, or just kind of an alternative thing. So maybe, I think that the number of videos that you watch has a correlation to your grade in this class, but maybe you've come into this class with already a large level of knowledge about the policy process, and you're able to just sail through the quizzes and the writing assignments in the class. Here's where we're kind of thinking about positive, negative, and no relationships when it comes to causation. These are kind of corollary relationships, right? So education goes up, income goes up, cigarette tax goes up, smoking goes down. Classic ice cream sales have nothing to do with crime rate, typically, I guess. Although ice cream sales probably go up in the summer, and so does crime, but it's the heat, right? That would be the spurious um, intervening variable. So, history of policy analysis. We first begin to use kind of this kind of science or evidence to discuss public policies in an early court case in Oregon in 1908, in something that has become known as the Brandeis Brief. And this was the first time where social science evidence was presented in court to try to argue um, uh, on behalf of the plaintiff here. Throughout from that point on, and from the second industrial age, social science and governance has continually increased. Right, we talked about this with our kind of theoretical developments, our kind of quick and messy political philosophy that we talked about, right? Where there's this kind of notion of we need knowledge coming from Bacon all the way up to kind of 20th century Dewey with the use of social science and government. The New Deal policy advisors began to spring up because government programs began to spring up left and right. And so we needed to understand if they were working or the best way to address the actual problems that these programs were designed to fix. And then World War II kind of explodes the sense of using research and various techniques to understand our public policy problems. So there's, in your text, Lasswell is mentioned as calling for this kind of policy science, right? And I've talked about policy science in this class several different times, and here's what that means, right? Problem-solving orientation to science. It's multidisciplinary, meaning that we're pulling in from multiple academic disciplines and fields to understand problems and come up with solutions. And we're recognizing that policy decisions are value-based. Going back to the kind of bounded rationality idea that we can't separate values from facts, especially in a public space. In democracy, values matter just as much as facts. And people value some facts over other facts these days. But in the real sense of things, value orientation is just as important as the factual information that we use when approaching the policy sciences, right? And this is different than other applied sciences where in medicine you're not really having certain values on a lot of things typically. Right? But here we are in a democracy, and these values can make things a bit messy from time to time. So understanding them from multiple perspectives is important. Key traits of this kind of science approach, and that is used in policy analysis, is that it is an applied science. It's practical science, rather than just the science for doing science. Here is we are developing theories and testing hypotheses to solve real problems in the real world. Again, it's interdisciplinary, it's empirical, observational data is used, and theoretical. And the whole aim is to improve the decisions that we make. So the kind of growth and evolution of policy sciences comes from this, the early periods of the New Deal and the World War II, and then again, demand hits a peak high during Johnson administration Great Society programs, where there's a large demand for analysis. Economic rationality models begin to really be developed here. If you think about the early work on bounded rationality, it begins in the late 1950s. The rise in modeling and forecasting begins with the development of the computer and larger processing capability to solve extremely large econometric models using big data. We also kind of know that the limits of these technical approaches, the limits of perfectly efficient models to predict things aren't actually perfect when it comes to applying them practically to humans. So that's it for this first set of policy analysis slides. And the next set, we're going to trace this growth a little bit more and then talk about what it means to actually be a policy analyst.